This section of the video is on the Wounded Knee Massacre and whether or not we think it's a genocide. Okay, first there's a brief summary. The events of the Wounded Knee Massacre occurred on December 29th of 1890. Many of the U.S. leaders feared the growing ghost dance religion among the natives. They believed their ghost dance religion was a sign of rebellion. The U.S. Army intercepted some of the Lakota people, many of which were very weak and very ill. So they escorted them back to the Wounded Knee Creek where the U.S. Army had a camp set up. The next day, the U.S. Army attempted at disarming the Lakota tribe, which was mostly successful until a shot was fired and open fire ensued. About 150 to 300 Lakota, including men, women, and children, all died. Around 25 to 30 of the U.S. soldiers died as well. Many sources say this is by friendly fire. Who was affected? The events of the Wounded Knee Massacre affected both the U.S. Army and those who died, and the Lakota and all they had lost, which include about 150 to 300 Lakota and 25 to 30 U.S. soldiers. What actions did the U.S. government take? U.S. government, more specifically the U.S. Army, stumbled upon some weakened Lakota people and they escorted them back to their camp at Wounded Knee Creek. The morning after they had arrived at the U.S. Army attempted to disarm the Lakota. In doing so, a shot was sent out, which resulted in open fire from the U.S. soldiers. This action killed many Lakota and U.S. soldiers in the process. What were some of the short-term impacts? There were many short-term effects, such as deaths and injuries in the Army's inquiries and initial public response and press reaction to the events of the Wounded Knee Massacre. Some more short-term effects included the further suppression of the ghost dance religion. What were the long-term impacts on Native nations? Some long-term effects of the Wounded Knee Massacre include more Native American uprising and in the entirety of the event being a symbol of their upheaval and resistance. These events also influenced the later 20th century activism.
The second topic of this video is the Navajo Long Walk and whether it is a genocide or not. What was the Navajo Long Walk? In 1862, commander of the military in Arizona and New Mexico, General James Carleton planned to force the Navajo people to march 350 miles to live in a reservation under military guard. This took place in 1863. Roughly 8,000 Navajos and 500 members of them This took place in 1863. Roughly 8,000 Navajos and 500 members of the Mescalero Apaches were forced to march. The plan for this was for the Navajo to adopt white American cultural values. General James Carleton said if the Army placed the Navajo on a reservation far from the haunts and hills and hiding places of their country, they would acquire new habits, new ideas, new modes of life. Civilizing the Navajo could be the best achieved through their children. The young ones will take their places without these longings, and thus, little by little, they will become a happy, contented people. When the Navajo grew to be tired, the soldiers would shoot them rather than let them rest. In 1868, the Navajo Treaty was signed, freeing all the Navajo people and letting them back to their ancestral lands. Short-term impacts included mass death, brutal treatments, Navajo homelessness, soldiers destroyed their homes, and cultural suppression. Long-term impacts included trauma, stronger identity, land loss, poverty, and inequality. Some reasons for Navajo death: starvation, malnutrition, exposure to extreme temps, disease, and killing.
The genocide criteria is as follows. 1. Killing members of a group. Does evidence for the Wounded Knee Massacre exist? Yes. After a shot was fired and open fire ensued, 150 to 300 Lakota died, and 25 to 30 soldiers. The counter evidence for this would be because a lot of the U.S. soldiers were likely killed by friendly fire, so it doesn't count.
For the Navajo Long Walk, this evidence does exist. They killed people that grew tired on the walk. However, they didn't kill with the intent to destroy all Navajo people.
Second is causing serious bodily or mental harm. For the Wounded Knee Massacre, yes, evidence does exist. There were death and injury, which is serious harm, on both sides. Some counter arguments would be more Native Lakota died than the U.S. soldiers.
For the Navajo Long Walk, malnutrition and starvation occurred, as well as exposure to extreme temps. Soldiers didn't attempt to help the Navajo people and did not supply them with food.
The third criteria is deliberately inflicting conditions to destroy the group. For the Wounded Knee Massacre, no, there is not any evidence. The U.S. Army found the weakened Lakota and walked them to their own camp. The counter argument to this is they later disarmed them, proving that they want to take control.
For the Navajo Long Walk, this evidence does exist. The evidence is forced removal. They forced Navajo people out of ancestral lands.
Number 4 is cultural destruction. For the Wounded Knee Massacre, the evidence is debatable. Some sources say yes, some sources say no. The evidence is the U.S. feared the upcoming Ghost Dance religion as uprising. The counter-argument to this would be they feared it and they wanted to stop it, but they didn't do so very successfully.
For the Navajo Long Walk, cultural destruction absolutely exists. They enforced Christianity and separated families. The goal was to strip children from their families and have them grow up with Christianity in a civilized environment.
The fifth criteria is intent. For the Wounded Knee Massacre, the intent to destroy the group is weak. This is because they walked them to the camp and disarmed them for safety reasons. They never intentionally hurt them or destroyed them. The counter-arguments to this would be disarming them made them defenseless and helpless, which caused more to die during the massacre.
For the Navajo Long Walk, the intent was weak. They killed and separated families. However, the goal was to kill the culture, not the people.
Next, we have our final evaluations. For the Wounded Knee Massacre, I believe this does not meet the definition of genocide. This is because genocide implies that a side is helpless and had no reason to be hurt or destroyed. But in the Wounded Knee Massacre, the U.S. Army walked or escorted the Lakota to their camp and disarmed them in the morning, which I believe was necessary. They could not trust hundreds of Lakota to not uprise or attack them. During this disarming, a shot rang out. No source knows for sure which side, but this shot resulted in open fire on both sides, but especially the U.S. Army soldiers. This massacre resulted in 150 to 300 Lakota deaths and 25 to 30 U.S. soldier deaths.
The final evaluation of the Navajo Long Walk, this case partially meets the definition. There were killings while the Navajo were completely helpless. However, the definition of genocide is trying to destroy a group of people. The goal of this event was to destroy the culture of these people. This case is not entirely a genocide, but rather a cultural genocide. This thesis could be put up for debate since the Navajo Long Walk did in fact have genocide characteristics, such as forced removal, starvation, and infrequent killings.